Welcome back. We are beginning our discussion and trying to gain a better understanding of monetary policy. Before we get all scientific and intellectual, we need to always remember the fundamentals of economics. People making choices under conditions of scarcity. They will, in theory, in their own mind, always make what is known as a better choice, taking into account, of course, that no one has perfect information. That is a big misunderstanding of criticism of capitalism, is this notion that there's a perfect economic actor. That is simply not true, and no serious capitalist believes that in the first place. But from the previous class, we were taking a look at two particular goods that you or I can buy in today's market. One is known as a banana. Why would I buy it? Because I want it. It brings me utility. Another is called a bond. Why would I buy it? Well, for the exact same reason I would buy a banana, because it brings me utility. Once again, the reason I buy these are not important other than to say that the benefits far outweigh the cost. Any voluntary transaction is a win-win situation. And true, the banana I buy, I might eat it, realize, oh, it tastes terrible. And the bond I buy, same situation, it might not work out for me, but that is not relevant at the moment of the exact time when I'm choosing to buy something. Two things to note. One would assume that when I buy this banana, because it makes me happy now. I gain utility at this exact moment. I am buying it for direct consumption. The bond is a different entity. I am buying it now because of what it's going to provide for me in the future, which in theory is some sort of monetary return that will then allow me to buy more bananas than I could with my present source of income. Some important ideas. Number one, the prices of bananas change and the prices of bonds change, and prices always change, hopefully, if they are allowed to. We talked about the concept of government mandated ceilings and floors and the disastrous effects they can have on the market allocation of scarce resources. Price is a number. It simply allows me to determine economic calculation. It allows me to understand the concept of what I value relative to the monetary cost of acquiring that particular good or service. Let's go a little more with the concept of these bonds. So let's go back to you again to make sure you understand that you need to be able to visualize from the perspective of both the supply side, which are the businesses and producers, and the demand side, which are those customers. And most of us, of course, always think in terms of us being a buyer. So what would you like? Would you like to spend $100 on a bond that gives you a 5% annual rate of return? Or would you prefer to spend $100 on a bond that gives you a 10% annual rate of return? Well, of course, you're not silly. You understand the concept of percentages, and that this one will get you a greater rate of return. So the heck with that bond, you are going to buy this one. So you've bought a bond. Nicely done. Hopefully it's going to work out well for you in the future. Well, let's look at a different scenario like we did with the banana. Now it's me that is buying a bond, and I have options. Thank goodness for options in a market economy. More variety, more choices is a wonderful thing. You are selling a bond that for priced at $100 because that's what you paid for it. And let's say the bond you bought has a 5% annual rate of return. At the same time, however, there is another bond out there in the bond markets, and also for a fixed cost of $100, it's giving me a 10% annual rate of return. Well, you are competing for me, your competitor is competing for my services, and quite honestly, can you blame me? I am definitely not buying that bond. I am buying this bond. Now notice how happy you were here when you were the buyer. At this point, however, you're a seller. You're not as happy. I simply do not want to buy what it is you're selling. So we've always talked about freely fluctuating prices. What should happen? Just like the banana. It seems your bond is highly undesirable relative to a new, better bond that is out there. Just like a car. Just like a car, people. So here we go. What is going to happen? Well, it seems that since yours is not a good rate of return, the value should begin to drop to make it more competitive with this particular bond. So it does drop. It drops to, let's say, hypothetically $50. Now I can buy me a bond for $100. It gives me a guaranteed 10% annual rate of return. Or I can buy a bond for $50. It gives me 5% annual rate of return based on the initial selling value of the said bond. Well, what do we know about this, people? We know, number one, you're now happy. Your bond is now competitive with other bonds which are out there in the market. However, same time you're happy, people, you're sad because you are experiencing the investment world, which is known as a loss. You paid $100 for something that now you can only resell for $50. The bond has lost value. Just like, say, your car you buy for $30,000, you drive it for 2 years, all of a sudden it begins to lose value and you can only sell it maybe now for $20,000. Goods and services over time can lose value. Bonds can lose value. Goods and services over time can gain value too. Think about your John Elway mint first year rookie car that you bought with a pack of bubble gum and it cost you $1, and that's probably worth in the thousands right now. Goods and services gain value, goods and services lose value. At this particular moment in time, you, on the other hand, are suffering a loss. Oh, well. Now, where did the 50 come from? That's what it's important to understand. So let's take a look at some mathematics here. For those of you who are interested, there's no denying if you get a major in investment or accounting, you're probably going to have a job somewhere. Most people do not understand the numbers and prefer to read books in school and do art classes and PE because simply it's fun, not recognizing numerical analysis. High demand for people who can do it successfully in the markets, and that correlates to, on average, higher wages. Back to the math. Okay, so apparently this bond is going to give me a 10% annual rate of return. That means every year I'm going to get 10% of the bond value. So I'm going to get $10 back a year. This bond is going to give me 5% annual rate of return. Every year it's going to return me $5 of interest. Bond values, which are those, times the interest rates, which are these, are what are going to give you your yearly return, which are those. And remember, at the length or maturity of the bond, you get back your initial investment. Okay, interesting. The better bond, their bond, well, I got the $10 because I did 100, the bond value. The interest rate, it's 10%, so I must translate that to a real number. And I just did multiplication, and there we go. Your bond is, the only thing that's different is the interest rate. So at that point in time, that number goes in there, that's 5%, and that gave me that right there. So how did the bond value work to become lower? Well, you need to understand that this number itself is not going to change. That is the original contractual agreement of the bond. At the same time, however, we need to be competitive with this particular bond right here because it's earning 10%. So as you can see, if this number is going to, in theory, go up, this number staying constant, well, that's a mathematical relationship. This number simply has to go down. So if I was to solve for the bond value by dividing both sides of the equation, by 10%, that's where this comes with. All this is trying to tell you is this doesn't change and that doesn't change. So to become competitive, this needs to go down. That's why your bond went from what you spent, now it's only worth $50 in the bond market. Okay, important thing to understand here. Interest rates apparently change. And interest rate is the time price of money. That's one way of describing it. You're going to come up with a lot of different definitions of interest, but that's on the internet, but that's basically the idea. It is the cost of money, and it's probably with respect to time. What did you see? Well, I saw in the previous example that the new bond value interest rate was higher than the one I had purchased at 5%. And as a result, my bond value had gone from $100 to $50. Key thing to understand, when interest rates begin to move upward, bond values begin to move downward. And those are bonds which have interest rates which are less than the new ones. Think about this on the flip side. If interest rates are going down, that means the bond values themselves are going up. So savvy investors are looking at the direction interest rates are going, and it's giving them information about whether they should be buying or selling bonds. And of course, investors are always looking to increase their rates of return. We're still, of course, just thinking about this. This is not a financial investment class. This is a class of introduction to economics. And we're looking at a financial side, and we're trying to develop something called monetary policy, which we're still not even sure about yet. So some things for us to realize at this point. Number one, an interest rate is the price of money. Most of you probably have recognized, oh my golly, I get an interest rate on my savings account in a bank. Yes, the bank is paying you for access to the money. Make sure you understand that. Secondly, the price of money is affected by the supply of money. It goes without saying, prices are always affected by supply and demand, and we're going to look at the supply side right now. Thirdly, when the supply of money increases, the price of money goes down. We know that from Unit 2, capitalism and the market economy. When there is an increase in supply, price goes down. When the price goes down, the quantity demanded increases. That is the law of demand. When the supply of money decreases, the price of money will go up. When the price goes up, the quantity demanded decreases. This is all consistent with all those wonderful hypothetical, theoretical graphs we were drawing the entire time. It simply is helping me understand behavior as people are seeing prices change for a variety of reasons, and then what they're doing begins to change. There must be a connection between interest rates and the supply of money. Clearly, if interest rates are prices of money and prices are changing due to supply changing, then this goes without saying. There must be some connection. Who influences the supply of money and the interest rate? That is a great question. That, my thinking friends, is my entire point today, and we'll end with that note. I'll tell you who attempts to influence the supply of money and interest rates. That is called the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System in the United States of America, the Fed. Have a great day. We'll see you guys again in the future.